Greetings everyone, welcome back. We are working on this drawing once again that we've taken inspiration from these Lego minifigures of Waldorf and Statler, turning them into the Joker and Batman. So started inking it, do a little bit more, and then at some point maybe add color to it. So let's open up this inkwell and continue working on this. So what I'll do is I'll bring out one of these paint brushes and we'll get some ink on it. And we're going to do some of the heavier inking with this brush just because we can move a little bit more ink with it. So I hope everyone's having a wonderful day and that hopefully you're spending some time with me working on some of your own neat things. Perhaps you're doing the same thing as me right now. Maybe taking some inspiration to do a version of Waldorf and Statler as the Batman, well, the Joker I should say, and Batman. So right now I'm not as concerned about where shading is coming from because I'm going to try to bring light in a different way. And I often will use just a brush and water to sort of spread out the ink anyway. Although, you know, it's going to be dark in certain spots, so that's just how it is. So yes, feel free to comment if there's some sort of fun little things that you'd like to see us do together. That is fine with me as well. Ink and paper can be kind of unforgiving in a lot of ways. So you know, wherever you place it, you really have to try to pay attention to what's going on with it. There are tricks, of course. You don't have to place it everywhere. But oh well, we'll see what we're doing eventually once we move enough ink around. Now I will admit, I'm not always into talking at the same time as I'm doing this. Also, I don't always just have music on too, so letting things fly out of my mouth, I suppose, is not a normal activity for me. I've chosen to have some of the light source kind of come in from this right side. I may change brushes here in a moment just to move a bit more ink. But we'll see. Come on now. Now, how many of you have favorite villains and heroes? Are there certain ones that in some ways you'd like to see exist in real life? Superman to me is almost too powerful. And in a lot of ways, he's limited by what he thinks of human beings and what they're capable of or not capable of. And I think that's a strange way to view human beings. He's not from around here anyway, as most of people know of the lore of Superman. So, but he was raised by good people. Batman was basically raised by, well, a butler. Which is not so far away from, people that have had nannies and whatnot growing up. It's hard to say if Thomas Wayne would have been as hands-on, I suppose, as time went on. Maybe. We have to assume that he was a busy doctor too, so not always around. That's exciting. So right now I'm just tossing a bunch of ink using a paintbrush. And it looks messy for now, but I'll go back over this after. Which would be kind of fun. Now let's do a little bit of the symbol here. And we'll sharpen this up after with our regular pen too. Now, I'm of the mind to say that I think for stealth purposes, there wouldn't be much point of having a lot of reflective things in your uniform as somebody who would work at night. It wouldn't suit you to be seen so easily if you were using the dark. So, light absorbing, flat, black probably would suit you more so for your stealthing abilities. So there's a couple of villains that I don't really understand their relationship to why they're into villainy. I can understand that maybe in their creation they just needed other beings to show up and, you know, you want to have some kind of diversity, I guess. I don't know. But like Poison Ivy, it's an interesting character. So if you really care about nature, you'd probably look at someone like Poison Ivy and be like, yeah, I get it. You can go pretty extreme with how you would treat people who treat nature so poorly. But again, I look at Ra's al Ghul and I think, well, overall, I think he has kind of, and I hate to say it, good intentions for the planet. And doesn't really favorably look at how human beings have treated nature either. The Harvey Dent character, Two-Face, he's kind of a little more chaotic, because he will just rely on the flip of a coin. And doesn't really want to be pushed into that decision or to make decisions, rather relying on the coin itself to do the thing. I don't know if that's just to keep guilt away from himself. I'm not sure. Now, of course, behind this page, I do have a sheet of paper, which I hope is going to block some of the bleed through. Because there could be a lot. Bane is another character who is reliant, I suppose, on doing terrible things because he's paid to do terrible things. That doesn't wash his hands of the bad things he does, but he's not directed generally towards those things unless he's paid to do it. Mercenaries. So that dumps a lot of ink. Now let's go to this side. Make sure that the chin is casting a bit of a shadow. And the rest will just be taken up by the dark cloak anyway. Now I do have pen brushes, but they're pre-inked, and I find that sometimes, now you can get them where you can ink them yourself, but the ones I have are just kind of like quick use things. Anyway, what I'm getting at is I often see there's different versions of black ink. Some are a little bit more blue, some are a bit more brown. This one's a bit more blue. But I find it dilutes nicely to a nicer gray anyway. So I favor it more so. So yeah, I probably should go out of my way to get the refillable ones. But I don't find they last very long. I try to treat my brushes and whatnot pretty well and clean them often and all that kind of stuff, but they do lose something after a while, and you trim them back, and then anyway, I find them to be a bit of a nuisance sometimes. For any of the commission stuff I do, I should say. This is just fun stuff I'm doing in a sketchbook. So something that I'm probably not going to do a lot of would be like random sketchbook tours. It's kind of where I dump a lot of weird ideas and sort of like not pre-visualization stuff, but I do treat them a little bit more like a journal. So where ideas kind of get formed. They're not really a portfolio for me. But some do. That's sort of how they build their portfolio, is they do their refined works in a sketchbook. And that's not really my thing, but do as you're comfortable with doing. Now, it's funny to me that the Batman seems to work mostly in the dark. That's a deliberate thing, I guess, too, because people are afraid of the dark. And that might be the main reason why he operates in the dark, sort of like hope in the darkness. That not everything in the dark should be scary, that there are some who look out for you late at night, so you shouldn't be afraid. Now, that's kind of where I want to go with that. And okay, I'll set that brush aside. And see about dragging some of this color around, smoothing out some of the lines a little bit. Now, you may not be able to see that, but what I'm doing is actually kind of lightening a little bit of the dark ink as well. kind of adding more water to it and letting it separate a little bit. So it just sort of changes the tone of certain things. It takes away some of the starkness as well. Which you can do pretty quick with water and ink. That way when it dries, you can go back in, you can fix certain details. It's kind of a wash in a way. Let's get this nose. Shoulder. You get to see some of the highlights get muted down a little bit too. Draw some of the ink into those light spots just a little bit too. So on this paper, it does come across a little bit more blue. As I said, it's kind of I prefer it that way. Let's see if we can quickly get the cape. Something that I'm pretty sure doesn't really go over well with authority figures is that, of course, Batman is a vigilante. Now, you might say vigilantes are also a nuisance because they don't really have an authority to do what they do. They just show up, they apprehend the bad guy, and then just leave, or the bad person, villain or villainess or whomever, and they just leave the justice system with whatever they, or whatever the bad person did. Now, Batman, of course, would be part of a Justice League, and they don't follow regular government authority. You know, a lot of them are super-powered individuals, and the government would probably want to have control over them. So maybe there's like a distrust thing that happens in the comic book world of not wanting the government to have control over certain powers. Kind of like, you know, what do they call it? The Sokovia Accords within the MCU. That there would be a powered individual registry, and that the government would have a say in what is going on with those powered individuals. And you can't even say that a lot of them are from Earth, so I don't know what would give anyone to say that ability should be handed over to a body of Earthlings. Anyway, just rambling on. Now I am going to get the gloves here as well, but I want to make sure that they stay kind of separate from the cape, that you can make out that that hand belongs to Batman. Statler Batman. So I don't know if you can see the effect of the water and ink with the way the cape looks. But I like the way that kind of does that. It takes a lot of the sharp edges away. And lets it look a little bit more like material, just sort of hanging down. Now, you may have heard me say this in previous videos, but capes are great. It saves you a little bit of time on having to draw the rest of the figure too. You can just hide stuff with a cape. You don't have to spend time drawing muscles and pockets and all that kind of stuff. You can just have a cape that almost gets to the ground. It's a time saver. I don't think that's why capes are that way. I think they're used in the comic book world as a way of disguising where, you know, a punch or a kick could come from. Kind of like an element of surprise. Now, I'm just going to do a quick and sort of deliberate wipe inside the glove, which would be black black anyway, but we want them to be definable. Same with like the chest as well. We'd want that to be definable. I haven't perfectly decided on whether or not this gag pistol should be kind of silvery or just black anyway. So now I'm just going to draw a little bit from the edges of the symbol to make up the body of the Batman. So just pull a little bit out every so often, and then we'll mute it down. We don't have to give them any real muscle tone. I will get a dab. Don't worry, we will not keep the six-pack going. We're going to get rid of most of this. In a moment. A little thicker than I needed it to be, but we're going to wash away some of this detail. I might have to let that dry a little bit before I go back again, because you can buckle the paper with too much water. See about this. Spin out some of that. Same with this one. I definitely threw in a little bit too much ink with that brush. Would have been better off just bringing out the pen and putting a fine line. And again, this is just in my sketchbook. But yeah, I think I'll have to let this dry a little bit before I do more with that, but it's not the worst thing. Okay. So they are Muppets after all. They don't have to have muscle tone. Now, I'm just going to add a few little highlights and shade and that sort of thing in the eyes of Waldorf. Mind you, he's wearing white makeup. Or he's been chemically altered. To appear ultra pale. But we're still going to add some shadow. Slight amount more, as if the light source is coming this way. Some of the mustache. We'll add a bit more to the nose in a moment. Same with the Batman. So it's a little fun. Do some too. Really is an interesting sort of effect to do it this way. See what I mean? Now I'm just throwing in a little bit more movement in the colors. That's my good friend Neville letting me know that I'm past the 45-minute mark. Neville is a pretty cool cat. An actual cat, I should say as well, if you couldn't tell from the sound that that particular machine was making. All right. As I said, I had the idea for this a little while ago. I'm just revisiting it with the Lego figures, because that's fun to do. Then we'll add a little bit of color to it as well. Now, I wonder with the Joker's hair, if he gets older, does it go to a lighter green? Does he dye it that way? Which I doubt. I think in the comic they make it seem as if his hair is permanently green from whatever toxins that he fell into a vat of something or other. It'd be interesting to see if he his hair changes as he gets older. Wouldn't that be funny? A more distinguished green? Salt and pepper green? Yeah, I don't know. Just silly stuff. All right. That might be the run of it for now. I've muted some of the sharp lines a little bit. give me the ability to go back in, pencil in a few other things, create a little bit more shade where I think is necessary. And add some color. So most of it today was about the cape. But for the most part, I think we're done for now. And yeah, no, we'll probably do a little bit more just for defining purposes with a pen, and then we'll add a little bit of color. Not much in the way of color though. I'd probably just go with, like, you know, the red around the lips and the green in the hair, maybe yellow in a few spots, and red. I don't think I'd do the entirety of the jacket, but I might, you know, like orange shirt, blue vest, purple jacket, purple gloves. I don't know, but we'll see. Overall, that's not so bad. About 52 minutes of just playing around with ink and water. I think that gets us to where we need to be for the last sort of step in Waldorf and Statler as the Joker and Batman. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.